That's why we have the Mind Games Camp this year, June 16 to 22nd, a week of presentations, role play, as well as fun at camp. Sign up today at probe.org and help them meet these challenges to their faith.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Today's Issues is the name of this here radio program. On Thursday, April the 25th, 2024, and joining me in studio is Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Yes, good morning, and now we are 8 months to Christmas Day.
Good point. I didn't think about that.
Well, yesterday we talked about Christmas Eve.
Well, that's true. That's true. April 25th, so yeah, 8 days. Better get that Christmas shopping done.
8 months, yeah.
You people that left your lights up, just go ahead and leave them on up.
They might as well now.
That's right. Don't bother. Just leave them up.
No, how you doing, Brother Ray?
I'm doing great, Tim. How are you?
All right. Ray's in Kansas City. We be in Tupelo, and Chris Woodward's in studio here. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing, Chris?
I'm well.
Yeah. Listen, there's 1 out of 100 homes in this country still has their Christmas lights up. I'm afraid, at least where
I think there's a few in my neighborhood.
I don't care what the HOA says.
Seems like it's more than 1 in 100.
Oh, well, probably so. It's probably, I don't know.
Tim, when do you guys take your lights down? Immediately after?
Well, we don't put lights up on the outside of our house.
All right.
We might put a little spotlight on a something, but we don't put, like people go grandiose around the house.
Clark
with all
Griswold.
We don't know. We don't do that. So we don't have anything to take down except for the what we put up inside, and even that's a challenge nowadays because it's just Allison and me.
Yeah.
You know how that is. You know that when your kids leave home and
it's just the two of you.
You think to yourself, wait a minute, we're going to spend 3 days decorating so we can walk by it every day, and then 3 days for us putting it back in the boxes? No. In the words of George W. Bush, not H.W. Bush, not gonna do it.
Nope. Not prudent. Not
prudent. What about y'all? Do y'all decorate a lot?
For many decades, I guess.
Yeah.
We always had a quote real Christmas tree.
Yeah, I hear you.
Go to the Christmas tree farm, cut it down, put it on top of the car. Make a big deal of it. But now the kids are long gone. And I swore when I was younger, I swore we're never going to have a quote fake Christmas tree.
Right, I understand.
But my views have changed in the last 3 years.
You've evolved.
I have really evolved on that issue, right? So now you buy it once, you hook it up, plug it in, unhook it, put it back in the box.
That's what we do.
Easy.
Yeah, I know. Simplify it.
That's right.
All right, so we got a lot to talk about. Several guests today. Riley Gaines will be with us at the bottom of the hour. She's been in the news now for over a year or so, championing fairness in sports, particularly the cause of women's sports being separated from men, men wanting to play women's sports by their men, their boys. They put a dress on, they put some makeup on, they curl their hair, they call themselves girls, and, hey, let me play on the girls' sports team. Well, that's wrong.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are acting like that's perfectly acceptable in our culture. Riley Gaines, she's a All-American swimmer at the University of Kentucky. She's been championing the women's sports and she's been getting attacked for it. So we'll talk to her at the bottom of the hour. Greg Fass will be with us next hour as well. Greg is president of GSF Media out of Nashville. He's a friend in town, been in Christian broadcasting for a long time, got some great stuff to share with us. He's represents David Jeremiah and Michael Youssef, among others, so I'll be interested to talk to Greg when he did staff devotion for us this morning. But the big news now across the on the scene is what's happening in Washington, D.C. at the United States Supreme Court. And joining us to talk about it is Jenna Ellis. Jenna is a host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning here on American Family Radio from 7 to 8 o'clock. She's Central Time. She's also a constitutional attorney. Good morning, Jenna.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
Thanks for being on. So what is happening at the Supreme Court as we speak here?
Yeah, so this is the case that has been appealed all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court on the issue of presidential immunity and whether former President Trump can be prosecuted by the Department of Justice for the alleged acts that occurred while he was still in the office of the president. And as we talked about when the D.C. Circuit Court issued their opinion, I said at the time that it was the right decision to not grant just blanket immunity, but for the wrong reasons. That court focused on the timing and said in their opinion that former President Trump has become citizen Trump with all the defenses of any other criminal defendant, but any executive immunity that may have protected him while he served as president no longer protects him against this prosecution. So basically, they held that presidential immunity attaches only while a person is in office and then lapses. And the Supreme Court appeared to agree with that this morning, and I've listened to the arguments at least for the first hour. And the question just within the first 20 minutes from Justices Thomas and Chief Justice Roberts were already focusing on the distinction between official and private acts, which is where a lot of legal scholars, including me, said the court would likely go and distinguish from the D.C. Circuit's opinion. And so my prediction of this case, and I think this is the right call if the Supreme Court goes this way, is that the court will send this case back to the trial court with instructions on separating the alleged acts between actually official conduct versus private conduct. And then the DOJ will only be able to proceed on acts that are legally designated as private that don't have executive immunity. And that also could spark then a second round of appeals if the parties between Trump and the DOJ disagree on the factual and legal findings on the alleged acts and whether they're private versus official. But regardless, Tim, of whether you like Trump or not, remember, this is not about Donald Trump. This is about the issue of presidential immunity and will have far-reaching consequences for the office of president and future office holders.
Jenna, it's Fred here. I got to listen to some of this morning. It became very obvious to me the questions from I guess we'll call it the liberal wing, Kagan, Jackson, and Sotomayor, were very pointed. They gave examples like, well, what if the president orchestrates a coup? Is that an official act? So they were throwing out these extremes here to try to paint whatever former President Trump did as akin to something like a coup.
Yeah, and interestingly, Amy Coney Barrett, Justice Barrett, actually read from the indictment and asked President Trump's attorney whether certain of the alleged acts they would designate as official versus private. And John Sauer, who's the attorney there, actually conceded that they would agree that some of those alleged acts were private. And obviously that's not negating other defenses such as, well, they're not criminal in nature or so forth. But they're not arguing that all of the acts are official. What they are suggesting is that while a president is in office, then the only way he can be criminally prosecuted is after impeachment and conviction. And I don't think that the court is going to go that far either. I don't see them taking either extreme, but rather looking at it from official acts get immunity, private acts do not. And can proceed that way. But I think you're right that the liberal justices are trying to already sort of set up a court of public opinion view as well.
Okay, so I'm going to put this down on the shelf like where a 3-year-old can reach it. I'm going to try to here. As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jenna, what I understand President Trump and his attorneys arguing is that a president cannot be prosecuted for while he's in for acts he does while he's president, whatever it is. Am I wrong?
Right. They are saying that in order to be prosecuted for even egregious things like ordering a coup, for example, or ordering the the assassination of a political opponent, that the founders contemplated that there may be office holders who would commit those acts, and if Congress did not use their power of impeachment and conviction as accountability, and then open for further criminal liability, that was a risk that they were willing to take. And he actually cited some of the arguments during the Constitutional Convention to support that proposition.
Okay, so if you buy that argument, again, I don't want to mischaracterize what President Trump and his attorneys believe or say. Okay, with Richard Nixon, could Richard Nixon just argue, "Hey, I got presidential immunity. I don't have to." So what if we broke into the Watergate, stole the Democrats' playbook or whatever like that? I was president, and so that's just, you can't prosecute me for that. I mean,
right.
What about that?
And that's what Justice Jackson actually asked that question to Trump's attorney, John Sauer, and said, well, then what was Nixon's pardon all about? Why would then his vice president come in and actually have to issue a pardon and in the aftermath of Watergate? And I think that was a fair question. And so, again, I think both sides are arguing a little bit just legally extreme propositions, and this is zealous advocacy. That's okay. I don't see the majority of the Supreme Court wholesale adopting either position.
You got to go. No, you got to go. So give us 30 seconds of what happens next.
What happens next is that we'll get an opinion by the end of June, possibly sooner, because obviously there's a timeline on this. But my prediction, and it's just an educated guess, that they'll send this back to the trial court to parse each of these alleged acts between official that do have immunity and private that do not, and then the case will proceed from there.
All right. Thanks, Jenna. Thanks. Take care. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.
She can hang up quick now.
She can.
I wouldn't want to ask her out on a date and be told no.
Jenna's assessment is exactly what Jonathan Turley, also a constitutional expert, said this morning on Fox. Cut number 1.
This is, after all, an incrementalist court. They tend to try to take small steps, not great leaps. If that's the case, the most obvious thing for them to do would be to remand it back to the district court to say, we need you to look more carefully at this record and what here is really related to his office. Where do these questions fall? If they do that, I don't think that they could try the president before the election. And if they don't try the president before the election, Jack Smith may never see a jury in either of these cases.
This is a hard one it's a hard one for the layman to understand, and I don't even know if the attorneys really understand. It's a gray area, seems to me.
Well, I was thinking about what Jenna said, and I would, if she could stay longer, I was going to ask her this question. How do you, when you're talking about the president, who has enormous power anyway,
right?
How do you take that knife and slice it cleanly between official acts and private acts? It feels to me, first of all, I think Jenna's prediction is probably exactly what's going to happen. It's going to go down to the lower court, and then they're going to debate it again. It's probably going to go back up to the Supreme Court on that very question. How do you decide? Who does decide what's private and what's public when it comes to a president? Because everything he does, essentially, in a sense, is presidential.
And I think that, part of the argument is that what President Trump did was question the results and acted on those questions. And what has to be determined is that illegal? He did that as president while he was president. The other defining thing, and Jenna kind of alluded to this, is that a president has to be impeached and then convicted on that impeachment in the Senate. In both cases, President Trump was impeached, but he wasn't convicted in the Senate. So that is also a defining factor in this. We'll have to wait. I think Jenna and Jonathan Turley are correct. The Supreme Court, given the political makeup of it, I see it going back down to the appeals court.
Chris?
I think one of our listeners posted on Facebook just a moment ago, there's a whole lot of what ifs here. And what if the Supreme Court decides this case based on a whole bunch of what ifs that don't have anything to do with the issue? I think what was a timely statement there from Jenna was where she said, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, This is not about Donald Trump. It's about whether a president has immunity in this type of situation. And that is something that will unfortunately be lost in a lot of today's coverage specifically, and I'm looking at MSNBC and CNN right now, because they're making this all about the bad guy they don't like, Donald Trump.
All right, that's so much for that. It's hard to get your head around all this, and to understand. The president. It is true that presidents have had immunity and do have to have immunity to be able to do their work and to operate. Otherwise, they'd be getting sued all the time.
Correct.
Right? Be in court all the time. So that is a understandable situation that our founder fathers anticipated and planned for. So I guess President Trump and his lawyers are arguing that there is a proper role. There is a proper way to hold a president accountable for illegal acts, and that would be impeachment, right? And so, but the other side is saying, hey, you just can't give carte blanche to do anything you want, and because impeachment could mean, as we've seen in the past, it just means if you're a Democrat president, then Democrats stick with you, and if you're a Republican president, Republicans stick with you. And so there's really, you know what I'm saying? It becomes a partisan thing rather than but I guess some people could say courts are partisan. I don't know. Anyway, it's kind of, that's all for that. Let's move on.
Well, I wish I could say in lighter news, but
we need some more. Have you got maybe a more complicated legal case
no.
that four stooges can discuss here?
We're going to discuss space-time travel, quantum physics here.
Okay. I'm ready for that.
I took theater,
bring on some quantum physics.
No, but in other news, Speaker Johnson he delivered on his promise to meet with students at Columbia, specifically to take up for Jewish students.
Columbia University,
yes,
right?
in the
New York.
New York City area. Speaker Johnson said he was going to go meet there, and he took up for Jewish students amid the anti-Israel, pro-Hamas protests that have been going on there and are still going on. I've got a couple of sound bites here from Speaker Johnson. Let's do this one, clip 7.
We are standing here right now on the steps of the Low Library. In this very building right behind us, Columbia University once awarded Winston Churchill an honorary degree, and it was Churchill who said, "It is manifestly right that Jews should have a national home where they may be reunited." We believe in that principle. And today I'm here to proclaim to all those who gnash their teeth and demand to wipe the state of Israel off the map and attack our innocent Jewish students this simple truth: neither Israel nor these Jewish students on this campus will ever stand alone. Those who are perpetrating this violence should be arrested. I am here today joining my colleagues and calling on President Shafiq to resign if she cannot immediately bring order to this chaos.
Hey, that's a bold move, right?
In Louisiana, that's putting the hammer down.
Yes, sir. That's gutsy. That is, well, we were talking the other day, Mike Johnson, what kind of guy is he? Well, he just showed us today to speak of the House and go show up there right in front of the people who are trying to shout him down. Man, he threw the hammer down.
Yes, and what an opposite of our president. Look at what's going on. It's not only Columbia now; it's universities across the country where Jewish students, many actually fear for their safety. The response at Columbia is to tell these Jewish students, "Hey, you know what?" And I'm paraphrasing here. You're present on campus. Maybe if you just stay home and finish off your year staying in your dorm room, out of the way, out of sight, then maybe things will calm down. And that's why Johnson yesterday called for the resignation of the president of Columbia. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Can you imagine for a moment, instead of talking about these being Jewish students, that they were black students on campus and they were being subjected to this kind of intimidation by a group of white students? Do you think for a moment that these campuses would tolerate it? Of course not, they would not. Can you imagine a university president saying to the black students on campus, "Hey, listen, your presence is causing some friction here. can you for the rest of the year just stay home or stay in your dorm room and maybe we can quiet things down? That would never happen, and rightly so. So the question is, why are Jewish students being subjected to this? By the way, on Columbia University, they were supposed to remove their tent city 3 days ago. Mm-hmm. They're still there as of this morning.
Your problem is that the administration and probably much of the faculty at Columbia University agrees with the protesters.
Yes.
They're probably out there themselves.
They have professors on staff at Columbia who agree.
Yeah. I talked to students supporting Israel a couple of days ago, and Sophia Witt with SSI, that's the initials they go with, Students Supporting Israel. I asked her, should the president of Columbia resign? And she said, look, it's just going to be somebody else in that position. They need a complete overhaul from administration down.
All right. So what these protesters are at Harvard, at Yale, and Columbia, NYU, now UT Austin, University of Texas Austin.
Yeah.
What they're protesting is, here's what they're going to say. They're going to say, stop the genocide. Okay. And what they're talking about is that Israel should, at least their first thing would be, Israel should not be bombing or sending their military forces into Gaza. Doesn't matter what Hamas did by butchering 1,200 people on that day, October the 6th, 7th. That Israel, remember, they were calling for a ceasefire before it even started, almost before the response by Israel even started. So, and genocide. Listen, I object to the use of the word genocide. Ray and Fred and Chris accusing Israel of genocide. Is it true that Palestinian Arabs are dying because of Israel's bombs and Israel sending their IDF, that is the Israeli Defense Forces, on boots on the ground into Gaza to find Hamas and their weapons and to defend themselves? Are innocent people, if you define innocent as non-combatants, dying, women and children included? Sadly, unfortunately, that is true. But genocide is a word that these people are using to get people's to inflame people's emotions against Israel, as if this was some kind of an ethnic cleansing.
Mm-hmm. I have the definition pulled up here if you want it.
Of
genocide?
Of genocide.
Yeah.
Okay, let me give my definition to see if it matches yours, because I'm on a roll right here. Okay. So genocide is wiping out people based on their religious beliefs or their ethnicity. Well, I don't even know if religious beliefs would qualify. Genocide is something to wipe people off because of they are a certain ethnicity, or that fundamentally that's it. This doesn't qualify. If Israel were committing genocide, quote, unquote, then they would be attacking all Arabs.
Right.
They'd be attacking the Palestinians who are Israeli citizens.
Right.
Yes.
What you said is the definition of, pretty much. And
okay,
it does
where are you getting this definition?
Merriam-Webster, which is the dictionary.
Okay, yeah. What is genocide?
Acts committed with intent to partially or wholly destroy a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. So to your point, Palestine is not a nation, okay? And these are not the only Arabs in the world.
Palestine never has been.
Right.
Yes, and so the real genocide is what these protesters are calling for. Mm-hmm. They're calling from the river to the sea. They want to wipe the Jews out of Israel. That's what they want.
We're going to talk to Riley Gaines, brave young woman. We'll talk to her when we get back from the break. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Once, while in Athens, Greece, a few of us decided to take a walk around part of that city. When we got ready to leave our hotel, an elderly lady who was in our tour group asked to go with us. We told her that we would be happy for her to come along. One of the reasons for the walk was to allow some of the other members of our group to cash some travelers' checks. So the first place we stopped was at a bank. While waiting at the bank, the lady began to tell me something about herself. She told me where she was from, who she was traveling with, and so on. Soon her conversation got around to her money. She told me how she had scrimped and saved, painstakingly looked for the best business deal, and done without down through the years. Then she informed me that about 6 months earlier she decided that since she was on up in years and that she couldn't take her small fortune with her, she was going to enjoy some of it. You know, I thought about what that lady said. I thought of all the people I knew who made it their greatest ambition in life to make another dollar. I thought about all those people whose bankroll was larger than their spirit, whose stocks were more important than their fellow man. Soon, some of us decided to go back to the hotel, while others wanted to do some more shopping. So we split, and each person went their own way. The little lady went back with me to the hotel. Now, there was a candy shop next to our hotel, and as I started into the hotel, the lady told me she wanted to go in and get some candy. So I went on into the hotel while she went next door to the candy shop. In the hotel, I continued to think about the lady and her conversion concerning her money. I thought about what the Galilean had to say about money and man's use of it. I thought of all the wars that had been fought, and all the murders that had been committed, and all the people who had become less than animals because of their greed for money. Well, after a few minutes, I decided that I would go to the candy store myself and get something sweet. The little lady was still there. She was sampling every piece of candy they had, and since no one in the shop spoke English, she was having a hard time making herself understood. I could see that the salespeople were becoming annoyed with her. I found myself a piece of candy that I wanted, paid the cashier for it, and began to eat it. The lady came over, looked at my candy, and asked me if it was good. I told her that it was, and so she told the waiter that she wanted a piece of candy just like that one, the one that I had. Well, the waiter took the candy, wrapped it, and gave it to her. "How much?" she asked. The waiter gave her the price in Greek money. She couldn't figure out the exchange rate, so she turned to me and asked, "How much is that in American money?" I answered her, "It's 12 cents. Well, she looked at me first, and then at the waiter. "That's too expensive," she said, and gave the candy back. You know, I guess that after 50 years of stinginess, parting with 12 cents is an awful hard thing to do.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." Matthew 19, verse 14.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening. I'm Tim with Fred, Chris, and Ray. And so if you want to apply for a job here on this program, you're going to have a one-syllable name.
Afraid so.
So
right. Yep.
Just one of our qualifications here.
Or you know about hockey.
That's up to Ed.
That'll get you a discussion with Ed.
Ed, who also has a one-syllable
That's
first
true.
name. So, all right, you're listening to Today's Issues. Again, thank you for listening. Well, one of the people that I follow on the formerly Twitter, X, is Riley Gaines, and she's been in the news for, I don't know, a year and a half, because she's taken a bold, brave stand for women's sports.
Yes.
And young ladies across America, and for that, she's taken a lot of heat, and wanted to have her on to give an update on what's going on this particular topic. Riley joins us from, well, I don't know where she is. I think she's home's in Asheville. Good morning, Riley. This is Tim.
Good morning, Tim. Let me just very briefly start by saying that I'm mad that my name is not one syllable, and I know nothing about hockey.
Well,
Riley, I'm so disappointed.
Yeah,
Neither do I.
Fred Jackson, he's a Canadian. Fred here is he's from Canada, and so he and our other Massachusetts guy keeps us up with hockey. So we won't ask you to comment on that. But you swam at the University of Kentucky. You were an All-American, and then but your home is Nashville, right?
Home is Nashville. That's right.
Now, your daddy, you've been asked this before, and we didn't tell you we were going to talk about this, but your daddy was the one involved in the Chucky Mullins situation, right, out of Ole Miss?
That's right. Yes, my dad is Brad Gaines.
Yes.
He played football at Vanderbilt.
Yes.
So you got it.
Yeah, Brad Gaines played football at Vanderbilt. Many people may remember the unfortunate situation with Chucky Mullins, the Ole Miss football player, back in the 80s, I think it was, when this took place. Anyway, got involved in a football play, and unfortunately, Chucky Mullins was paralyzed and later passed away. Anyway, I watched a special on television, I guess the ESPN or SEC channel, about your dad. It was very touching. Your dad, having been involved in the play, it kind of bothered him for a long, long time, and he would go and pay respects to Chucky and his family. It was very moving. What's the name of that documentary, by the way?
I believe it's called It's Time, and it's amazing. Well, I'll just say I think that the leadership that I have and the fortitude and the ability to think for myself and all of the different things that I so utilize in this position that I'm in now, it comes from my wonderful family.
Amen.
So I've got two parents who are incredible. My dad, he still pays his respect to Chucky. He goes 3 times a year. So he goes on the anniversary of the hit, the anniversary of Chucky's death, and he goes on Christmas morning. So
Wow.
I've never had my dad home on Christmas and when I was young, I didn't understand this. Dad, why won't you be home with us, your family, your kids on Christmas? And he told me, Riley, no one deserves to be alone on Christmas. I'm going to spend it with Chucky. And still to this day, he does that. But I'll tell you, ESPN, since I have taken the stand that I have now removed my dad's documentary from
Oh, you're kidding me. How pathetic.
I wish I was.
Oh, so they're punishing you, trying to punish you in your message by removing the story about your dad, which is completely and totally different from their documentary list. Can you watch it on YouTube or anywhere?
Yes, they still have it in their library, but they won't air it anymore, which is wild because they used to air it.
Oh, it's
on repeat, and it's a wonderful. Obviously, it's an incredible
story.
Unfortunate, but it's a story of overcoming racial boundaries and adversity and wonderful things that deserve to be talked about. But that shows you the direction of which ESPN has gone. Absolutely.
Riley's dad, Brad Gaines. What's the name? Chris, are you looking it up there?
It's time.
Okay.
She was correct.
The name of the well, I hope she would be. She's his daughter. But it's Time is the name of the documentary. But what I was asking, where can you watch it anywhere? Can you watch it on YouTube?
The only place I've ever seen it was ESPN.
Okay.
It might be on the network, SEC network, but that is connected to ESPN somehow.
Okay. So Riley, how long has it been since you first took a public stand on this issue?
Gosh, it's been 2 years now.
Wow.
It's wild to me that I've really been screaming the same thing over and over and over again for 2 years.
Now, what? Let me ask you this: you could have just not said anything and gone on about your life and not drawn all this attention from the haters, so to speak. But you chose not to do that. You chose to speak out in defense of fairness in women's sports and against. So, did you anticipate? I guess you kind of knew there would be a reaction, But what about how have you responded to this?
I figured there would be a reaction. Had no idea it would lead me to the opportunities and the impact that we really, of course, there's a coalition of us now that
Yes.
we've been able to have in this fight. I was in dental school after college, working to be an endodontist, weirdly enough, which is someone who does root canals.
I wanted to
so
be
look,
that
I
too
know-
when I was in college, but didn't work out for me. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, me either now. But all that to say, it's wild. By no means did I feel prepared for this. Admittedly, I knew nothing about our government, which is kind of concerning. I never took a government course, nothing like that. I knew we had 3 branches, didn't know what they did, still don't know what they do. I don't even
Right.
think they know what they do, to be totally honest with you. My public speaking courses in college, my face would turn the color of a tomato. So I didn't feel prepared for this, but I understand now. And honestly, I understood this part pretty quickly is that God doesn't call those who are equipped. He equips those who he called. And I certainly feel as if I'm trusting him. I'm leaning on his calling for me and just taking it day by day.
Yeah.
Fred, you go
Right.
ahead and then Ray next.
Riley, yeah, Fred here. Riley, when you started this fight, you said 2 years ago, were you surprised at all at the opposition that you have faced from universities, from the mainstream media? I mean, they have portrayed you as a troublemaker, as someone who is, you're not all really defending women's sports, you're just against transsexuals. And has this been a shock to you? And obviously, you've decided to continue the fight because you're into year 2 of this.
Gosh, I knew bias existed in the media, and I knew academia was left leaning for sure, but I had no idea to what extent. You're exactly right in saying that I have been utterly vilified. I have been I've been called every name you could possibly imagine, whether it's transphobic, homophobic, racist, white supremacist, domestic terrorist, a fascist. What I thought was so interesting this past week, maybe the week before, the National Organization of Women, right now, the group who created in the 60s or 70s, who has been the leading feminist group, has fought for women's rights, fought to maintain women's rights. Of course, they're now leading the charge in dismantling women's rights by actively advocating for male inclusion in women's sports and women's spaces. But they released an article this past week that called me a white supremacist patriarchist. This is the National Organization of Women, and here I am fighting for women, real women.
Yeah.
So all of that to say, it really has been a shock, especially college campuses. I mean, I've been spit on. I've been physically assaulted. I've been held for ransom, where these protesters demanded that if I wanted to make it home to see my family safely again, I had to pay them money. But I think now the general public is understanding just how left-leaning academia is with everything that's going on. Of course, we saw University of Texas yesterday. We've seen Columbia this past week with everything going on with the pro-Hamas, Palestine, Israel stuff. So it's unfortunate that it takes a circumstance like that to be able to really highlight and expose just how woke, for lack of a better word, these universities are. But I think people are waking up to it.
We're talking to Riley Gaines, and Riley, Ray's got a question for you. I don't know how long. Can you stay like 5 more minutes or so? How long can you stay?
You got it.
Okay. But I want to give you an opportunity to promote. I mean, you're giving us your time. I wanted you to promote whatever it is you want to promote, a website or whatever. Go ahead.
Well, you're very sweet. Actually, super cool. But I just wrote a book. And so my book, of course, it touches my experience, how we really got to this point, the impact that's been had, and what we can do. And so that book is called Swimming Against the Current. It's available on Amazon. It's actually on pre-sale right now, and it drops May 21st. So super exciting stuff there.
Swimming Against the Current, and it's by Riley
That's right.
Gaines. Get a copy of it, folks. We're thankful that Riley's come on our program and that she is standing firm. Go ahead, Ray.
Okay, my question, Tim, and Riley, to you, it's just this. I'm listening to you. You sound remarkably cheerful, remarkably positive in the face of being spit at, vilified, attacked, physically assaulted, threatened, called every ugly name in the book. And you know every time you speak out, there's going to be people on the other side casting these terrible names on you, yet you're cheerful. What keeps you cheerful and hopeful, and how do you stay in the battle? Because I know this is a long question, because some people would say, I couldn't do that. I can't face that. What gives you the strength to do this day to day and remain so positive?
A couple things. One, the subject matter that I'm fighting for, I know it's right. I'm so secure in my stance, which makes it easy, of course, from a worldly perspective, but also from the standpoint of biblical truth and understanding that, because before anything, I want to live a Christ-like life, and understanding that, look, I'm of course talking of biological reality, but more importantly, sharing God's gospel and his message that he created male and female perfect in his image. He so intentionally and purposefully crafted each of us just the way we are. So knowing I'm standing for that, and knowing the outcome, because ultimately the Bible tells us how this all ends. The war has already been won. And knowing that, it allows me to go on with a smile on my face, with an incredibly light heart, foster no hatred for anyone. I really, it's weird. I just feel light. I feel as if he provides me with strength. He provides me with wisdom and direction and protection, guidance, discernment, all the things necessary to stay firm and stay strong. I have a wonderful support wheel around me, a wonderful family. I've been married for almost 2 years. So all of these things, it's what keeps me going. And really briefly, I have a younger sister. I can't imagine being in the position that I was in, facing what we faced and not fighting for her. That's who we're fighting for. That's what's at stake here. And that's why I do it.
Hey, Riley, this is Tim again. Let me ask you this. Just the Summer Olympics are coming up, in July, I guess, or August. I'm not sure when, in Paris. Anyway, are the trans athletes going to be able to compete or not?
Super interesting. They will be able to compete. And I'll tell you, the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, as well as the NCAA, honestly, the IOC has taken just about the worst approach you can possibly take. Their policy now says that you cannot presume, word for word, it says you cannot presume that males possess any advantage over females. I'm reading it right now. It says, no athlete can be precluded from competing or excluded from competition on the exclusive ground of an unverified, alleged, or perceived unfair competitive advantage due to transgender status. And until evidence determines that males possess advantages over females in athletics, it cannot be deemed to have an unfair, disproportionate competitive advantage due to their transgender status. So the Olympics says there's no difference.
That's insane.
Whatsoever.
That is insane. That is insane.
They are in biological denial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good way to put it.
Biological denial.
Now, I'll tell you what, Riley, this is what I've said about this issue too. A lot of the people who say take the position like you just heard the IOC take, or who will say they have no problem, like Dawn Staley, the head coach of South Carolina, the girls team, the women's team who won the national championship. They say these things to virtue signal. They're just saying things that are the liberal. Not all liberals believe in this. The secular, progressive, woke line. Okay. However, if it were really to happen, and they had to compete against them, if Dawn Staley, the head coach of South Carolina, who is a great coach, not taking anything away from her coaching abilities, if she had about 5 LeBron James play against her team, 6'8", 255, and beat her team and by 100 points, then she would say this is not fair. Okay, but as long as it's in a vacuum, as long as it's abstract, as long as she can say it without the real consequences of it really happening, and it wouldn't take 5 LeBron James. I'm just talking about you get one man who says he's a girl and he 6'8", 6'10", playing girls basketball, scoring 50 points a game. You're going to see people say this is not fair, who are today saying I don't have a problem with trans athletes. Riley, do you think?
Of course.
Go ahead.
No, you're 110% right. You really mean to tell me that Dawn Staley?
Right.
First of all, we would have no idea who Dawn Staley was if it weren't for women's basketball. She wouldn't have the career she had. She wouldn't be in the coaching.
That is a very good point. Yeah.
Same thing with Megan Rapinoe or Sue Bird or any of these women who, of course, conveniently are done competing. But also none of these women have daughters to defend. Even Billie Jean King has been a fierce defender for male inclusion in women's sports. These women, what they're doing is pulling up the ladder behind them.
Yes.
You really mean to tell me that the NCAA or the IOC or ESPN, for that matter, really and truly believes that there's no difference between men and women's sports? Dawn Staley, come on, the basketball is a different size. The three-point line is further back in men's basketball. You look at when a male basketball player gets a fast break, they're running down the court and they're dunking. A woman, they're going to go down and shoot a layup.
Yeah.
She knows that the sports are entirely different, but you're right. I think she's a sellout.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Chris here. I've got a question. I follow you on X like a lot of, millions of people. And I know you
She's got millions?
I know you responded to this. It's safe to say you probably have millions.
Well, we need to take
advantage
of this.
If not, I'm bumping you up. But anyway, I know you responded to this. While Dawn Staley made her comments, in more recent days, Angel Reese, standout LSU women's basketball player, made comments saying we need to protect young women in sports. What do you think about that?
Man, I think it's incredible. I can't believe that. Can you believe it's a controversial statement to say that?
No.
But unfortunately, it is deemed controversial. So when I saw that, of course, I was just thrilled. And she had tons of other basketball players who played in the Final Four, who played in the national championship game, who were retweeting and also saying similar things. Antonio Brown posted the same thing. So it's been wonderful to see these professional elite players seemingly side with women. Of course, that's a pretty broad statement, but in saying protect young women in sports,
yeah,
I imagine
and I have seen. I saw Tim Brando yesterday. He tweeted.
Oh, he's wonderful.
Yeah, he's the CBS.
He's been there long enough. He's like, y'all aren't getting rid of me.
Right. Yeah. CBS college football anchor on Saturdays in the fall. He's been and Sage. What's Sage's like?
Steele.
Yeah, sorry. She had an interview she's promoting now that she did with you. When did she do that interview?
It released yesterday, and we filmed maybe a week or so ago. She's amazing, Sage Steele. She's
pretty bold too. Is she still at ESPN or is she on her own now? She's on her own now, isn't she?
She is ousted after all the COVID stuff, after the BLM stuff.
Oh yeah.
And now after all the women's sports stuff, she's gone.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, one other thing, Ray, you may have another question for Riley. But by the way, folks, we're talking to Riley Gaines from Nashville. And what is your website, Riley?
It is RileyGainesCenter.org.
And that's RileyGaines Center.org. The other day I saw a story, and you commented on it on X, formerly known as Twitter. I don't know how long we got to say that, like 5 more years, I think. X, formerly known as Twitter. But you highlighted it. It was some high school track and field girls in West Virginia and they were shot putters. And there was like 5 of them, and one of them was a dude who said he was a girl, and he wanted to go shot put against the girls. And the girls declined to participate, which I applauded them for that. They shouldn't. That's exactly what they should do. They shouldn't have to do that because they're. I don't know if that was a state championship or just a track meet. Well, anyway, do you want to comment on that? You saw that?
Of course. Look, I could not be more proud of these girls. Keep in mind, these are 13-year-old girls.
Yeah.
This comes after a Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling last week that ruled that in the specific case of one young boy who began hormone blockers at 8 years old in West Virginia, he would be allowed to compete with the women, which Patrick Morrisey, the Attorney General of West Virginia, just yesterday announced that they will be taking this to the Supreme Court, which kudos to him for continuing to fight and defend sanity, children, women, parental rights. He's been wonderful and really leading the charge there. But anyways, after this ruling, of course, this boy was allowed to compete with these girls. All 5 of them said, I'm not doing this. They reached out to me before and they said, hey, this is what we're facing. What can we do? So being able to talk with them, connect them with other girls, all 5 of them stood down, which was huge. If you haven't seen the video, I encourage everyone to go watch it. It's wonderful. But I got to go to West Virginia yesterday and meet them.
Wow.
And it breaks my heart. These are, again, 13-year-old girls, and it is a sad, sad day when they have to be the adults in the room.
Yeah.
But their courage, their leadership, it inspires me. It, again, reminds me why we fight.
How many states have passed laws that
24.
24 states, praise the Lord, have passed laws that say no. Women and girls play women and girls sports. Boys, you have biological. Okay, biological males play sports. Biological females play female sports. 24 states have passed those laws.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So your home state of Tennessee's done that, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
My home state of Tennessee has a big initiative and piece of legislation that I've been working on. It's called the Women's Bill of Rights, which I can't even believe it's necessary, but it's a bill that codifies and defines the word woman. That's been passed in 5 states thus far, tracking and plenty others, tracking in Mississippi.
Okay.
So great work being done there as well.
Riley, I know we just got a second here or so, but
she said she could stay the rest of the day. You heard her.
Oh, the rest of the day.
Yeah,
fine.
Guys, remember, my name is 2 syllables.
Yeah.
I know. So we're going to have to.
Okay, Rye.
I'm kidding.
My head is still spinning by the IOC and their definitions of male and female sports. Anyway, I have an assignment for you. I'd love for you and your husband to go to a National Predator NHL game and take a poll of the people around you as to why there aren't girls out there playing in the NHL. Take the results of that poll and send it to the IOC.
Right.
Because I got a feeling those people at that game know a whole lot more about reality.
Is this before or after I throw the catfish on the ice?
They really do that.
Take one of those with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got it. Well, I appreciate you guys very, very much. So thank you for having me on.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you, Riley. And if you come our way, we'd love to have you in studio and visit with you here. But thank you very much.
You got it. Thank you.
Okay. That's
All
Riley Gaines. One brave, tough young lady right there.
She'll be a champion in our eyes forever.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. All right, we're going to take a time out right here, and we'll be back after the news with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
American Family Association, a ministry with a mission to inform, equip, and activate people like you to strengthen the moral foundations of American culture and to give aid to the church here and abroad in her task of fulfilling the Great Commission. We couldn't do it without your day-to-day support. American Family Association. Find us online at afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Supreme Court justices heard oral arguments on whether former President Donald Trump can claim presidential immunity from prosecution for his alleged part in the January 6th Capitol protest. Justice Amy Coney Barrett questioned Trump's lawyer, D. John Sauer, about the possibility of discovering misconduct after the presidency had ended.
What if the criminal conduct isn't discovered until after the president is out of office? So there was no opportunity for impeachment.
We say the framers assumed the risk that of under-enforcement by adopting these very structural checks.
The court's decision could shape the scope of the presidency, determining whether presidents are immune from prosecution for certain acts after leaving office. The former president spoke to reporters in Manhattan, saying the case should be thrown away.
My constitutional rights have been taken away from me, but every single expert, every legal scholar, every respected scholar has said this is no case. There is no case here. This is just a political witch hunt.
A new law in Tennessee aims to give parents more control over social media for children.
Tennessee Governor Bill Lee expected to sign the Protecting Children from Social Media Act into law, which mandates anyone under the age of 18 would need the consent of a parent or guardian to sign up for a social media account. Tennessee's bill puts social media companies on notice and applies to both current and future account holders for minors who already have an account. Companies will have to verify parental consent. Platforms will also have to provide parents with ways to supervise the account. Failure to comply would open social media companies up to lawsuits. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
A conservative activist and former Republican leader is concerned that pro-Hamas mobs are making their hatred known on Texas university campuses. Chad Groening has more.
The anti-Israel pro-terrorist mobs are no longer confined to the hallowed Ivy League schools. In fact, protesters at the University of Texas at Austin formed a human chain as Texas Department of Public Safety troopers moved in to clear the demonstration. And at Texas A&M, a radical leftist group called the Young Democratic Socialists of America carried signs and chanted in favor of Hamas, which brutally murdered 1,200 Israelis on October 7th. Kathy Adams is a former chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. She suspects many of these agitators were not students on campus.
There was a rent-a mob, not people who were Texans. These were people who were bussed in from other states.
But Adams says there is a large contingency of Muslims in the state of Texas.
They are very prominent in places like Dallas and Plano, where I have lived in the past. And so there is a real concern about our open borders. Where are these people coming from? What are their intentions? They're standing up saying things like, I hate America, and they want the fall of America.
Adams is encouraged that Governor Greg Abbott recently issued an executive order directing all public universities in the state to reevaluate their free speech policy and to establish punishments for anti-Semitic rhetoric. I'm Chad Groening.
Southwest Airlines, which flies only Boeing planes, is cutting some service and eliminating jobs through attrition. Jenny Casola has more.
Southwest Airlines says aircraft delivery delays from Boeing present significant challenges for this year and next. Southwest is limiting hiring and offering voluntary time off programs to employees. It expects to end this year with 2,000 fewer employees than it had at the end of last year. Southwest also will end service to Cozumel, Mexico, Bellingham, Washington, Syracuse, New York, and Houston's George Bush Intercontinental Airport. Before Boeing's production issues, it expected to receive 79 new planes this year. Now it says it could receive as few as 8 new jets. Jenny Cosola, Fox News.
Stocks are tumbling after a report suggesting flagging economic growth and still high inflation hurt the hopes that have kept Wall Street high recently. The S&P 500 fell 1.3%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 603 points, and the Nasdaq Composite fell 1.7%. American Family News is online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Android or iPhone. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Hey, man, what are you doing?
I'm just lying here relaxing in a stream. I call it streaming.
Okay, you know that word already has another meaning, right?
AFA Streaming offers free and subscription video content. Titles like By Design, The God Who Speaks, and Asbury Revival, Desperate for More. You'll also find video versions of AFR programs. Visit afa.net and click on Streaming. Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Listening to AFR, I'm Tim Wildman. By the way, we have wanted to let you know if you are traveling this summer on vacation or whatever, and you want to come by and you're going to be traveling our way here in Tupelo, Mississippi, and see our studios. You can even watch us do the show if you want to, see our network, take some pictures, whatever you want to do, you're welcome to do that. We have church groups. Of course, they're more local, but we do have a lot of folks who travel. They headed down to the beach or whatever. We just let us know you're coming. You can go on the website, afr.net, afa.net, and let us know you're coming. Give us a call because, we want to bake a cake. And you remember that one? You know what I'm talking about?
Bake a cake?
You just chuckled. Yeah. Ray, you know what I'm talking about?
No, but I like the idea. The concept is good.
Okay. Am I the only one who remembers if I'd have known you as a coming I'd
have baked a cake.
Okay.
Sure.
I don't know where that came from. Is that from the musical Oklahoma? Or was that off Broadway?
I'm not that old, Tim.
Okay. I'm looking at you, Fred. All right. So, Steve Jordahl. Good morning, Steve Paisley Jordahl.
Good morning, everybody. I baked the cake, if you want.
You did. You literally baked a cake last week and brought it up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got your music.
And I knew you were coming.
Yeah.
So I did that. But may I just say that I love it when people decide to sign up and take a tour. They come by, they talk and get to meet the nicest people.
Yeah, we have wonderful listeners.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And if you, we are, if you're traveling, let's say from Memphis to Birmingham, for example, we're right in the middle.
Yep.
Are you going from Nashville to I don't know, New Orleans? We're down the road.
If
so
you're going from the South Pole to the North Pole, we're about like 4/5 of the way there.
That's one way to put it, Steve. Never heard it put that way.
3/5 maybe. Yeah.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues. Boy, Ray, you were commenting to me. You said that was an impressive interview with Riley Gaines, right?
During the break, I went up and said to my wife, Tim, you and I have been doing interviews for 15, 16 years now. That's one of the best ones I have ever heard on American Family Radio. We've had tons of great ones, but she was so clear, so articulate, so positive. That she gets knocked around in the media, and she just comes back and doesn't give up. Wow. If you talk about what we want from Christian athletes and Christian spokesmen and something, wow, she was amazing, and what a great example. Wish her every success.
She was a All-American swimmer at the University of Kentucky. I mean, that's NCAA. That's the highest level of collegiate competition right there. And to be an All-American, and then what she won. Help me out here. She won. The reason this all got started, she finished second.
Yes,
I put that in parentheses, in quotations, to in a national competition. I don't know if it was a national championship.
Championships, yeah.
Mm-hmm. To remember the guy.
Yes, Will Thomas.
Will Thomas.
Will
Leah.
Will said, "I want to swim. Sign me up in the girls' competition."
Mm.
And he's like 6'2", 6'3", just towers over these girls. And he won, or they tied.
Mm-hmm.
And then they gave the award to him, and that's what started all this. And the Bible talks about God raising up people for a certain purpose and time.
Mm-hmm.
He raised Riley Gaines up because Riley Gaines could have lost that competition and been a wallflower, or maybe a non-believer or a pagan, or I don't know. But no, God raised up Riley Gaines because he knew she was, and he's given her the strength to be courageous in her message.
And Ray's question was so important. What keeps you going?
Right. And she said Jesus Christ.
Her relationship with Jesus Christ.
Amen.
What an example.
All right. Well, listen, today I guess is Nashville Day. Riley Gaines lives in Nashville, and our next guest, Greg Fast, is from Nashville, Tennessee, and is down visiting with us. How you doing, Greg?
Well, you said to come and visit. Is there a cake
did.
available, or
There's no cake.
You did make a promise.
Steve brought the cake
I
last
did
week.
devotions too, and I'm looking for cake.
Well,
good to be here.
You can't have your cake and eat it too, Greg.
And
I think
Andy,
we
as
all
you
know
told
that.
me, you can fly here from Nashville, and
Yes.
it's 30 minutes.
Well, a couple months ago, whenever it was, you said I want to come down and visit because you are in the Christian part of your business is representing Christian radio programs, two networks like ours, and radio stations, including David Jeremiah's program and Michael Yusuf's program, which we air both.
Yep.
On
Focus on
AFR.
the family, have roots and focus on the family.
Focus on the family, and we have forever. We've aired those shows. So when you were talking about coming down here, I was thinking, I've driven to Nashville many times, and it's okay. It's 3.5, 4 hours, but then you got to go home, and you're like, oh, I got to drive 3.5, 4 hours home, even if it's one day to the next. And I told you, I said, listen, we have jet service now from Nashville to Tupelo. And you said what? You said Shazam. I remember that, but you didn't believe me, did you?
Well, I'd never heard of Contour Airlines, so I guess we can give them a plug. But it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I was texting you in the plane.
Yeah.
Saying, I cannot believe this.
Yeah, by the time you didn't even get
minutes.
peanuts, and you were already landed.
And then you go to Tupelo Airport, which is the cutest little thing in the world. You put in your pocket, and so it's like, hey, I'm going to do this.
Did he just offend us, Fred?
$60
Was that
right?
I don't know. It was very inexpensive. So
Yeah,
I
the
thought,
cute
I've lived in
little
town for
airport.
30 years, Nashville. What'd you say?
I think we're supposed to be offended right there. You called us having a cute little airport, a big city bragger.
No.
All right, Ray Pritchard, by the way, Brother Ray's in Kansas City. He's
Okay.
on with us right now.
Great.
You can see him right there.
Hi, Ray.
So,
Good morning.
So you took so you're going to go back home this afternoon.
We
You're
are,
a 30-minute flight.
Indeed.
From the
I
cute
like-
little airport to
like that.
Nashville.
Well, you know, coming here and seeing what you guys have done with this new building. You know,
Yeah.
the new building is probably not, 2 years old or something. I mean, new.
Yeah, it's about 2 years old.
But,
2
you know,
years
just-
old in March.
It
Still feels new.
Especially coming from, we were talking earlier about focus on the family and the visitors that go there.
Right.
But, you know, this is just a great testimony of what, you know, God's faithfulness for sure, but honoring, you know, your dad
Right.
and stuff. But yeah, it's great to come and see. And I'm all about that, as I was
Amen.
telling you in devotions, to
Amen.
come and see it for myself and look
How
what
long
God
have you,
has done.
how long have you been involved in Christian radio?
Yeah. So, you know, I used to, as I think I told you, I started my career in Seattle when contemporary Christian music was in its infancy with
Right.
Evie and the Imperials and all that stuff. And so anyway, graduated from being a DJ. I guess you can graduate quickly from being a DJ, or you
Keith
say a
Green,
DJ
you
the
play
rest
a
of
lot
your
of
life.
Keith Green
Yep.
back in the
Oh,
day, and
absolutely.
second chapter
before
of
he
Acts,
died.
and
Yep.
who else?
Yep, all of that.
Yeah.
And I remember I was telling you, B.J. Thomas became a Christian. We all thought, oh my goodness,
Right.
he's
Yeah.
got a Christian album.
Right.
So, but anyway, eventually made my way to focus on the family, and that was really life altering for me.
Steve was at
That's right.
Focus.
Yeah.
Were y'all at two different time
Yes,
periods
sir.
though?
We
Yeah,
didn't
but I
cross paths there, but was separated maybe by about 8 or 9 years.
But I set the legacy for
Yes,
you.
yes.
And then Jim
You set me
Daly
up
and
well.
I were peers, and it was fun to be able to see, you know, that Jim would be raised up to be
Right.
the new president there. But they're they're doing such great work. I mean, are they 40 years old? But the
About the same as us.
continuation
Our
of what they've
when it
done
started.
and
Yeah.
that's the key. You know, this getting better and always because there's so much to do. As we were just listening to Riley, a fellow Tennessean. Tennessee's a great place.
Yeah, it is.
Mississippi's a great place.
Yeah.
But I just didn't know, coming from Southern California, which as soon as you say California, you start to pause. You know, when I
Yeah.
just think about Gavin Newsom will probably be running for president at some point, and I left California 30 years ago. But the thought of what can California
What
do to
happened
destroy itself?
So you grew up in Southern California?
I did.
So what?
25 years.
This is the place where Reagan Was governor 2 times.
And Orange County was very Republican. San Diego,
What happened?
military, and all that stuff.
I
Just it's
asked
like an ooze. It's
I
just,
asked people who grew up in California when it was more of a conservative place, at least all-American type atmosphere.
I think
what happened?
The Bible talks about people loving the creation more than creator. I think the weather and the whole aura of the coastline, and you see that up and down the coast. I went to school in Seattle. This worship of the creation on the West Coast, Oregon.
Sort of pantheism or paganism?
Yeah,
you think
for
that's
sure,
big?
for sure. And then, I went out there. My mother-in-law is still out there. And we went out and sat in traffic, and I go there regularly, to see the traffic that people are willing to sit in.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I mean, maybe New York is different, but the fact is that there is something it's like almost mind-numbing, maybe, about this is what you have to do to live here. Both
But there's a lot of great churches out there, too.
Pardon?
There's a lot of great churches out there. Steve grew up in Northern California, but I just think about David Jeremiah. There's a lot of great churches.
Yeah, and California, outside of the metro areas, Sacramento and even Sacramento. I mean,
normal
when you
people
get
live out there.
That's right.
Well, I grew up in Santa Cruz, which is as left-leaning as you can get.
Right.
But I did go to Biola. Well, here's my theory about what happened in California. Democrats play the long game. They started seeding the ground with mayors, maybe school boards.
After Reagan?
Yeah, during Reagan, while they had the plan to take over the state, and they had a bench. Republicans, we get the governorship, we're good, governor and the congressman. But I think Democrats knew how to play the long game and plan and institutional capture. They had all the schools.
Well, if you believe the news, a lot of California's in trouble and falling apart. You look at Los Angeles, San Francisco.
Why is homelessness not something that as you trip over people in the street?
Right.
Instead, it's their fault, and we've got the government's fault, and they're going to put them up, and we need to have more money to
tell
pay
us
for
how
them.
You represent David Jeremiah. He's
a mentor of mine.
Yeah.
And,
how did you get started, and how did he get started in radio? Because he's been one of our most popular shows for a couple decades.
And do you know that they're having their best year ever? They did that film.
And he's like 112.
He's 82. Easy. He's Caleb. I'm headed that way.
Don't tell him I said
All
that.
of us are headed that way, from Joshua to Caleb.
We live long enough,
But David Jeremiah, just like Focus, but there's these, like Michael Youssef, there's these ministries that have so much integrity, but they have innovation. They're continuing to innovate. And then David Jeremiah, they just relived that Christmas film. And that was huge for them. And it's now escaping me the title of it, but you guys probably know about it. And
I watched that. That wasn't The Chosen, was it? What was
no.
something else.
It was Why the Nativity. Why the Nativity.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what the views counts were and stuff, but we went to a premiere.
Is he still
of
the
it.
pastor?
He is. He is. But, they're building a full production television studio they're gutting. Have you been to their headquarters ever?
Once, yeah.
Yeah, they're
I have.
gutting it already, and they're making it they're expanding that. So, kind of like you, Tim, David Michael, Jeremiah, his son, has really stepped up. And I don't know if you know him at all, but he's behind the scenes, kind of a quiet fellow, kind of private, like somebody I know of that's sitting in the room.
I'm that way.
With his, what is that kind of hat that you have on that you dig? What is that?
What cat hat got
I like
on
that hat. What is that hat? What's it called?
It keeps my head warm.
I know,
hat.
but what's the name of that hat?
Well, people call it a newspaper boy hat. They call it a
I call it cool. But
golf hat.
Yeah.
It's cool too. That's
toboggan?
I don't
It's
think
not
so.
a
That's a knit
toboggan.
hat.
No.
That's a knit hat.
Talking about what I got on right now.
Yeah, this is super cool.
Yeah.
Do you videotape this and
we're live
at the
video
same time?
streaming right now,
so
Greg.
everybody can see it.
You're being seen all over
I like
the country.
it. So anyway, Turning Point is just one of the great stories out there, and they had their biggest year last year and doing things that nobody ever thought that they would.
What makes Michael Youssef and David Jeremiah and those kind of what makes them successful in terms of their ability to communicate?
Well, of course, the integrity to the Bible and not straying to the left and the right. And we all know of national ministries that you get off 1%, and before you know it, you're on Mars. And so, and I could name them one by one. Having been on the board of NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters. Are you still on the board, or did you slide away?
I think I'm off. I think I rotated off.
Yeah, I slid you
got
on,
me
and now
there.
you slid you off.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So anyway,
there was only one meeting a year, wasn't it? Hey, listen, I like the NRB. We got a good relationship.
Oh, and they do a great job.
Yeah.
Here's the answer to your question from my 40 years in this is that ministries who take care and are attentive to their constituency and deliver on their promise. But you have to deliver on the promise. If somebody writes you, you write back. If somebody asks for a resource, it needs to be well thought through, and it needs to get to the person.
Yeah.
I heard you the other day on a program. They're giving away 100 books or something, and you were saying, well, they got to get to us first. You were telling the listener, you have to get here first, then we have to send them out.
Right.
And it's good way to communicate. So the idea of integrity, certainly, but the idea of taking care of their constituencies.
Yeah.
And you know what? A lot of ministries that have potential communicators and stuff don't want to do the back end anymore because that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the direct mail and all of the resources and stuff. It's a different kind of generation, that will do that or not do that. So.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues. That's Greg Fast. Greg's in studio with us. He's visiting. He's down from Nashville. Flew on a jet.
For the first time in my life.
And he's leaving on.
Yeah,
I'm kind
jet
of
plane. Well,
kind of a southwest guy most of the time.
He didn't. First, Greg doubted me, I think. We have jet service from Nashville to Tupelo 3 times a day. Are you going back this afternoon?
I am. I would have done a prop.
You'll be home
if that
before
still would have
dark.
got me at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
All right, Steve, what's happening in the world? Greg can hang around and comment.
Well, I just wanted to let you know. So we've been talking about all the college campuses, the protests that are going on in college campuses. I'm seeing on my Twitter feed right now that the faculty at NYU has formed a human chain around the student encampment there because they're threatened with arrest, and the faculty is going to keep the police out. Basically,
The faculty.
Yeah.
So the inmates are running the asylum.
That's right. Well, I just want to let you know that it's happening everywhere.
Now, where's everywhere?
Well, Liberty University, for one. I want to play you a little bit about what's going on at Liberty University.
Hold on just a second. You just rocked my world.
I don't. Well,
okay. Just a second.
Hang with me here.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna hang. Okay. All right. I'm gonna hang with you. I'm gonna withhold judgment till you tell the rest of the story.
This is what's going on at Liberty right now. Cut 14.
In seeing what we have been witnessing, watching over these last few days in college campuses across this country, Columbia University and NYU, Yale University, MIT, other places where students, while we're gathered on the lawn here at Liberty, that they're also on the lawns of their schools and they're protesting and they are threatening the lives of their own fellow students, and they're speaking a language that basically says that they are for the annihilation of an entire race of people. How amazing it is that Liberty students come to our lawn, and what we do is rather attack one another, that we lift up the name of the only one who is worthy of our praise, and that is Jesus Christ, King of Kings and Lord of Lords.
Yeah, so they're protesting at Liberty with
Now,
worship bands.
Are they supporting Israel too?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what the purpose of that was?
It might be.
They can probably expect a visit from the Department of Justice.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Is Liberty one of the ones that's being sued?
No, Grand Canyon University out
Yes.
in Arizona. They're the largest. I think they're the largest Christian school in the country, and they're being attacked by the one of the 3-letter agencies in D.C.
Yes.
Huh?
Department of Education.
Yeah, Department of Education.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, good for those students there at Liberty University. Okay, I've seen protests, and the protesters are the pro-Hamas, anti-Israel bunch.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
And they are, I've seen them out at NYU. This is on television. NYU, Columbia, which are 2 schools in New York City. UT Austin.
Yep.
But now, are they?
I'm sure it's dozens of campuses that no one's mentioned yet. But
yeah, but I don't think this is widespread yet. Is what I'm saying. I don't call that widespread. I don't think there's that much anti-Semitism in America.
From your mouth to God's ears.
I think these are your Antifa, BLM folks.
Yes.
Who have a far left, anti-American, anti-Christian view of the world, and they make noise.
Yes.
And so.
But the shocking part about this,
faculty,
within 48 hours after the massacre was carried out on those Israeli citizens on October 7th, within 48 hours, there were anti-Israel protests on campuses in this country.
Yeah.
So that tells me this anti-Semitism, well, it has been building for years. We've been doing stories on this for years. The boycott, divest movement. And that's being repeated now. They say the university should have nothing to do with Israeli-based companies. This ought not to come as a shock, actually.
Of course not. It's college campuses. I have 6 children. I wouldn't even think of going to any kind of university, maybe Liberty or Grand Canyon, maybe, but
Yeah.
much less public schools. So I mean, that's a closed. Oh, surprise!
Yes.
Yeah, Ray, where's this going to go, Ray? You think this will die out here pretty soon?
Well, no. I think the people on the other side, the pro-Hamas supporters, the anti-Semites, they have been energized. Why should they stop? It's working. It's working at Columbia. It's working at NYU. We're going to see them in Austin, Texas. I mean, it's happening there. No, I think it's going to spread to major universities across the country. And just for my 2 cents of what I think ought to happen, when the protesters are found, if they are students enrolled at the university, they ought to be expelled. If they're not, they ought to be arrested. That would solve the problem quickly if we had leaders with the
That's
courage
what Governor
to do that.
DeSantis of Florida said.
And didn't Greg Abbott in Texas, come
said
down
the
hard
same
on
thing.
something there?
Yes.
God
Governor
bless
Abbott.
Texas.
Yeah. Yes. You're listening to the radio program Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Ray, I don't think a lot of people understand when these people use the expression, by these people, I'm talking about these pro-Hamas protesters, there's an expression that they use, from the river to the sea, right? And most Americans go, what in the world is that?
What river, what sea? What are we talking about?
What are we talking about here? From the river to the sea. When they use that phrase, what are they talking about?
Well, the river, of course, is the Jordan River, the biblical Jordan River. And the sea is the Mediterranean Sea. What do you have between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea? You have the nation of Israel.
Right.
And when they say from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free, they are calling for not just the destruction of the nation of Israel, they're talking about the elimination of the Jewish state. And frankly, I think they're talking about...
they really are talking about genocide.
Yeah, thank you. They really are talking about genocide.
They're talking about it. They want to wipe out the Jewish people, basically.
So people say, why don't the Jews negotiate? How do you negotiate with people who want to wipe you off the face of the earth?
Well, they have tried.
Yeah, they tried. They tried over the decades. It doesn't work. Why? I remember there was a gentleman, he died about 5 years ago, and he was my tour guide in Israel for 20 years, one of our tour guides. He was an Arab believer, and he had a home in Jericho. I've been by his home. Met his wife. He had a home in Jericho. He had a home also in Jerusalem. Anyway, but he was very fair-minded. He loved living in Israel, an Arab.
Sure.
But he could point out, some things that he thought were wrong that the Israeli government was doing against the Palestinian/Arab people. But he wasn't an anti-Semite. He worked with Jews all the time, even though he had some differences. But he told me one time, he said, you know what? The leaders of the Palestinian people don't want peace with Israel. I said, what? He said, yeah. He said, Yasser Arafat, he said, he pocketed the money that like the U.S. and other countries, European countries would give the Palestinian people
billions
money.
Yeah.
Okay, it was called PLO, right? Back before Hamas. The PLO may still exist. It's called the Palestinian Authority today.
Right.
Okay, we're out of time, and I'm fixing to sound really smart, and we're about out of time.
That's what
here.
tomorrow's for.
Well,
we got All right. So anyway, he said that instead of building peace with Israel and building roads and bridges and colleges and hospitals, they took that money and they stole it. And you remember Yasser Arafat, when he died, it was discovered he had all that money in the Swiss bank account.
Billions of dollars.
It should have been for the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
So anyway, I can wax eloquent later. Another day on this topic. Thank you, Ray.
You bet. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Fred.
You bet.
Steve.
My pleasure.
Brent Creeley, our producer, and our other guests, including Greg Fast, who will head over to our cute little airport.
30 minutes home.
Yeah, and be back home this afternoon.
Thanks for letting me come.
Before supper. See you tomorrow, everybody.
And my father, your great-grandfather, fought in World War II.
Really?
He was a gunner on the